this where the Reverend Dr. Ian Wells lives?
Did you try the front door?
Nope, come on. Oh, you might want to get some shoes on. Is your family available?
Hello.
Hello?
Goodness sake.
We need to do something to mark the occasion, and me getting a suit on for the first time in about 7 months is probably an occasion enough. Hello.
You want to come out?
So yes, we've got a couple of things planned for you.
Can I sit off the camera?
It's like we're on the BBC.
Absolutely. Well, as I say, we couldn't let the moment pass as we come to, I guess, the end of an era, certainly. And on behalf of the church, and I'm here on behalf of the church to say thank you, and that we love you, and that we're going to miss you. So I've got a couple of things for you to have a look at, first of all. So let's.
Oh, you're dress.
Okay, so have a look in there. This is feel free to open it. This is a number of people have wanted to write, make comments, to say how much they love you and miss you, and so that you can have a look through that at your leisure. A lot of comments in there of love and praise for you guys as a family and the impact you had in the church. There is another little gift in that bag which you can open later. There was a financial gift that the church has contributed to, so there's a cheque in there.
Thank you very
that's
much.
for you all. And then there's this as well. This is quite heavy, and kind of hold it by the top of the item if you're able to get it out of the bag.
Okay. Oh,
Can we talk about
that's
it? I hold
really
the bag
heavy.
and then you can.
Yeah, you can hold it from the top. Hold it by the top.
Oh my goodness.
So this is something for us to remember Parkhead
Oh.
Church, a bit of the old church building, your very own Parkhead stone, which you can use to remember us, to pray for us, or it's pretty heavy so you can use it at a doorstop, that would be fine as well. And then there's one last thing that we want to present to you, this special moment to say that Ian Wells and family, this is your life. Good evening, and welcome again to This Is Your Life. It perhaps should be called This Is Your Ministry, because over the next hour or so, we will be speaking to some of the individuals who have been impacted by the ministry of the Reverend Dr. Ian Wells. We will be delving into the archives to find some pictures and footage which remind us of some of the highlights, and listening to lots of stories from people who remember the great, the not so great, and the downright ugly of Ian's life. In normal times, we would probably be marking Ian's move to Perth by having a church party, with sausage rolls, musical groups, and maybe even a ceilidh. The restrictions have forced us online, but it gives us a little more time to thank Ian, Carolyn, Lucy, and Sarah in a different way. So get yourselves comfy, and I'll begin. Ian George Wells was born in July 1971 in Bells Hill Hospital. There was someone who was all too aware of your arrival, Ian, though if you listen to this clip, it sounds like she was a little bit disappointed.
Well, Lord, I didn't get my little girl after 3 tries, but here he is, Ian Wills.
Perhaps she had a reason to be disappointed. I'm sure if her third child had been a daughter, that girl would never have done something like this. Ian's mum recalls that you were living in East Kilbride at the time, with your mum, your dad, Jack, and your older brothers, Graham and David. The family travelled from East Kilbride to Parkhead every week to attend the church, which was a home from home.
It was there Ian and his brothers, Graham and David, made their friends, their cousins and aunts and uncles, and were prayed for by so many of the folks in the church, especially in their late teens. To this day, some of these people still pray, and especially for Ian. Ian was a great footballer, and we assumed that this would be his chosen career. But instead he chose banking, and for a while enjoyed partying when he was in the bank with some of his colleagues. He continued to attend the church on Sunday AM, and many of our friends and relatives prayed for him then, as they had done for Graham and David. In 14th September 1990, our prayers were answered when Ian committed his life to the Lord. His first experience was to feel full of love for the Lord, and he said to me, "Mum, what do I do with all this love?" "Give it away, son," I said, "and stay close to the Lord so that he can fill you up every day." He became a youth leader, a position he kept for 7 years, and during that time he began to sense a call to ministry. He studied theology at Glasgow University in 1993, and later he was ordained as a Nazarene minister, having met all the requirements of our denomination. Ian said recently, "The golden thread of ministry that runs from childhood to adulthood, and as a pastor here, is the fact that the people of Parkhead have always been part of our life, even though we lived in East Kilbride. Reaching this community with the love of Christ was in the end ministry to a community that was also home."
Hi, Ian and Carolyn, Lucy and Sarah. Richard asked if we'd make a video for you guys before you leave Parkhead. Delighted to do so. He did ask us, did we have any memories of your younger years? And since I was there on day one when we brought you home from the hospital in July 1971, and of course Eva and I have known you, Carolyn, since you were, I guess, a 5-year-old arriving in Glasgow. We made a long list of things we could talk about, but after a bit of consultation, we decided not to ruin your reputation, so we won't mention any of them now. But Lucy and Sarah, if you're ever in trouble as teenagers from Mum and Dad, just call Uncle Graham and Aunt Eva and we'll fill you in the background, okay? So anyway, listen, we love you guys. We miss you. Also, we wish we could have been there this Christmas time. To say bye to you guys and then see you in your new home in Perth. Sincerely thank you for all you've done to allow God to work through you to transform what we still very much feel is our home church. Ian, everything you've done over the years, you've learned to do really, really well. I have to confess it used to sicken me when we were younger. You were a fine football player. I think a lot of people don't know before you got ill in your late teens that you had some professional clubs knocking at your door. But I also remember as a great footballer, you scoring 9 goals in one, I think it was BB game at Brankham Hall in East Kilbride. And the funny thing was, you weren't even the top scorer in the family that day, because if I remember right, the other 10 came from Kenneth, who of course was our cousin. So that was quite amusing to me, at least. I remember you going to Hutchie, never having touched a rugby ball in your life, and 12 weeks later you're playing for the Glasgow select team. I remember taking you playing golf, never hit a golf ball in your life either, and by the third hole you're smacking it straight up the middle further than Davey and I could hit it. And that's about you in a nutshell. I say everything you turn your hand to, you do really, really well. And I'm glad that God is using you guys in ministry, and that although it's sad that we won't see you at Parkhead when we come home, we're excited by what will happen at Perth under your leadership.
Ian, it's already been suggested that you were perhaps a little bit of a handful in your younger days, so we should probably speak to a few more people who are around at that time.
Years ago, I taught in Denniston and often used the same Christmas musical for both school and our church in Parkhead. One year, we performed a musical called Meredith. Now, Meredith was a camel who happened to be around for the census at Bethlehem, and Roman soldiers were there too. A papier-mâché camel was made for the school production, magnificent creature, but in church we got by with just a head sticking out from behind the piano. Soldiers, however, we could provide if we reached out to the big boys in junior church. And the big boys included the Wills boys, the Wills brothers. I imagine, to the dismay of their teacher, we only needed them to come to the last rehearsal, as, at least in my mind, they were there mainly to keep order among the little shepherds, who were always a distraction once they got hold of the shepherd's crooks, and they would jab and poke and annoy. Of course, on the day of the performance, it was Wills and Co. who provided the real drama, not the shepherds. As soldiers, they sat themselves at the front of the stage and set up a dice game that descended into a fairly realistic disagreement and a convincing scuffle. I have to admit, it brought the whole presentation to life and won the admiration and the wonder of at least the little shepherds, if not their parents. Having proved their worth, the soldiers settled and allowed the performance to continue as planned. The Christmas story again centred on the younger children, who were absolutely overjoyed in having the full attention and encouragement of their heroes, these older boys. This ability to add an extra dimension to the script, I don't think has ever left Ian. He's always worth listening to and participating with. Thank you, Ian. Much later, Ian became our school padre. At our end of term services, we could have around 400 children and their parents, siblings and grannies, all crammed into the Baptist church at the foot of Armadale Street. These services, unfortunately, had in the past tended to take a bit of a nosedive after the children had performed and the minister got up to take over. But not after the Reverend Ian Wills joined us. He was able to hold the attention of this captive audience and develop what we had been celebrating in music, whether considering the wonder of Christmas, the hope of Easter, or even the freedom of summer. Ian made the most of this God-given time. School communities grieve as well as celebrate, and as our padre, he was able to very sensitively deal with concerns that deeply affected both pupils and staff, as well as making weekly assemblies relevant and fun whenever possible. I think Jesus must have had a great sense of humour, as well as a compassionate heart. I thank God for you, Ian, and pray that he will continue to shape you into the likeness of his Son.
Some years ago, Ian, when you were a teenager and I was acting as church secretary, it became the situation in Sunday morning services in the old sanctuary. You and your pals and cronies sat under the gallery as far back from the front of the church as you possibly could, causing from time to time some degree of disruption within the services. I took it upon myself that I should tackle this issue, and of a Sunday morning in Burger Street, I approached you with a view to coming to some agreement in the situation. Sadly, that approach was not received very well, and you just walked off and left me standing there in a rather difficult situation. Here we are, Ian, many years later, and from that young, disruptive teenager, you became my much respected church pastor. I'm so grateful for that, and thank God for the transformation in your life and your situation. We wish you well, Ian, at Perth. Trust that God will bless you and the girls and the family.
My fondest memories of you are at the Bible class on a Sunday morning. I remember you as a lovely, kind boy, head full of nonsense, always enjoying fun and a laugh, very lovable, but keen to get out and just see what the world had to offer. And all that changed, Ian, when your friend died. He was killed in a car crash, and it kind of stopped you in your tracks and made you think about life that bit more seriously. And it wasn't all that long before you gave your heart to the Lord and became a Christian. And it's been a joy to watch your progress and to see where you are today and what an influence for good you are for people and how well you are able to promote the word of the Lord and to be there for them in their times of need and to lead and to guide them.
Greetings from the Douglas clan in Olathe, Kansas. I was invited to say a few words regarding your early life and have great memories of you actively participating in Parkhead Sunday School, District Sunday School sports days and summer camps, many of which are recorded and still I have on video and films. I distinctly remember the Sunday School junior class, which we appropriately named the Live Wires. It was a great class due to the high energy level of everyone. The junior class scripture verse was from James chapter 1 verse 22. Be ye doers of the word and not hearers only, or in the modern version, but prove yourselves doers of the word and not merely hearers who delude themselves. Right away I could see you were indeed a doer. Always supportive, willing to participate in any events or activities using your many emerging gifts and talents, whether it be through music with singing, sports, especially playing football, or reading and speaking in class plays. On a recent visit to Parkhead, you reminded me about the district Sunday school sports, photograph behind me here, when one year we were adjudged to have lost an event. I protested, but to no avail, and so instead bought everyone a medal. Of course, this was the days before VAR. I was really surprised you still remember that event. As mentioned earlier, I have many memorable moments of you on video and film. Do you remember this appropriate seasonal event clip you sang and acted in? Watch carefully as you will see many familiar faces from 34 years ago. Well, Ian, I do not know if you recognise the two taller angels before the last angel, but I do remember it caused quite a stir in the congregation when you and our son Mark emerged from the side hall and marched up to the choir area in the old Parkhead Church to participate in the Hark the Herald Christmas musical. Of course, I had and still have great admiration for you and Mark, who as young teenagers were willing to volunteer as additional choir members in full costume. Ian, we have been watching Parkhead services during this pandemic, and we're glad to see you are still doing acting sketches with the revival of the Reverend I Am Jolly. We have been excited to follow your journey over the last 23 years as a servant leader for Christ, overseeing the building of the new sanctuary and the establishment of the new charter outreach in Parkhead. As an authentic servanthood doer, you have embodied what it means to be passionate about God and people. It is an indication of who you are in terms of your God-given talents and spiritual gifts, while ably supported by Carolyn with your daughters Lucy and Sarah, extended family members, and a growing congregation. Finally, Ailey and I, while rejoicing and celebrating in your wonderful ministry at Parkhead, we also want to wish you God's richest blessing and the continued guidance of the Holy Spirit for the future with your recent calling to Trinity Church of the Nazarene in Perth. God bless you.
I'm pretty sure that Alan mentioned some kind of acting. A character called Reverend I Am Jolly, perhaps? I wonder if anyone has that footage.
Be careful what buttons you press in each other's lives, but especially on social media. Just one wrong click can send your TikTok video viral. Sadly, just like poor Ephesia. Her court case begins at the end of April. Enjoy the service. Watch what you post. Oh, yeah, beauty.
Moving on, it would now be nice to hear from some of your own generation and hear their memories of you.
Hi guys, it's Gav, live from New York, so to speak. Privileged to say a couple of words. Ian, you and I have known each other since we were less than knee-high, I think, and been through many things together, and we have many great memories from all those sleepovers when we were young at each other's houses and barricading ourselves in rooms. I'm not sure what would have happened if there had ever been a fire, but somebody was looking after us. To lots of memories since then. Obviously, one that sticks in my mind is recording a hit single together in Montreal. You may recall it was a 4-part harmony. I was fantastic. You were equally as good. Stuart was mediocre and Davey was just awful. It was a bad day for him. But since then, I've obviously followed your career and with great admiration. Very proud of all the work you've done at Parkhead, a place that means so much today to me. And when I heard that you were moving on and leaving to go to Perth, it was bittersweet because it's a huge loss for the church there. But no, it's the right thing for you and for the family, and a great boost for the Perth church. And I know the right leader will emerge in Parkhead because it's such a strong and wonderful congregation. But just wanted to let you know how much I love you, how proud I am of you, and very much look forward to seeing you soon. God bless.
Hi folks, Jack and I have been asked to share a couple of wee memories of Ian in his teenage years. I must admit we racked our brains for quite a fair bit, trying to come up with a couple of memories that were suitable for the audience, and we got there in the end. So Jack's going to share one of them.
So one of David says Ian was a lot of fun growing up in the live game things. He certainly was always one for causing a lot of laughs should we say. So one of these times I remember was we were with the YP and we were going to Watford Church of the Nazarene for the weekend. So we were all in the minibus and Mr Wood was our driver and down, and we were all carrying on and having a laugh, and Ian had his own sort of particular way that he was trying to attract the attention of the other motorists.
I think the motorists' view of a Church of the Nazarene on the side of the minibus, I think their view of the church would have been slightly different, and it's.
We'll leave it to your imagination. We can't really, but we're just glad that Mr Wood had his eyes firmly on the road ahead.
Yeah. Selective hearing, yeah. I think that's what we'll say.
And didn't sort of pay attention to anything that was going on in the background. So
one of the other kind of memories for me is after Ian had become a Christian, he started this thing of confession, and we were on a youth trip to Northern Ireland, and he pulled me aside and he confided in me that he fancied a certain Carolyn Wood, and Lucy, Sarah, that was the start of the journey of your daddy chasing after your mummy.
So lots of laughs over all the years. I mean, Ian's always been a great laugh and a great company, so we will miss you, but we wish you all the very best in this next journey of your life.
We're excited for you, and we're excited for our friends up in Perth, and you're only an hour up the road. God bless you both.
See you soon.
It is true that you started to court Carolyn Wood, who happens to be my sister. There's a little known fact that you spent some time chasing after the older Wood daughter, so I can't tell you how relieved I was when Carolyn accepted you and you didn't have to work your way down the siblings and give me a try. After becoming a Christian, you became more involved in the leadership and running of the YP. In 1991, you became YP president for a period of 7 years, a period which had a huge impact on many people's lives. I wonder if you can place this voice.
I first came to Parkhead in 1983 when you were just a naughty wee boy sitting in the back row of church creating chaos, reading the newspaper and drinking who knows what.
James Payton was the YP president you took over from in Parkhead, and it seems that you continued to follow in some of his footsteps. He remembers you causing some challenges for his leaderships, and there is a but.
But I also remember the day you ran out to the altar as fast as you could to say yes to Jesus in a very profound way. I became YP president for a while and tried to have some influence on you. I don't think it did much good, but as it turns out, you've turned into me over the years. You went to Asbury tootling along after me. Now you're off to Perth tootling along after me, though I know it's a very different place than when I first left. You've had a fantastic run of ministry in Parkhead. I couldn't think of anybody else that could have reached out into the community more than you've led the church to do. And I really pray that it will go well for you when you go to Perth. It's a beautiful town. It's a great church. And if you didn't know, it was actually planted by Oswald Chambers. The Perth Holiness Convention led to a little church being built there and put together, and you get to stand on the shoulders of some real greats, not me, but certainly his. Hope you have a great time. Take care, friend. Bye-bye.
My first memory of youth group was actually an overnight at the church. I think there was a crowd perhaps from Belfast or Carrickfergus. Boys were upstairs, girls were downstairs. I don't know who started it, but there was a water fight. Do you remember this? The church was swimming. And that would have been fine had it been midweek, but it was a Saturday night, which meant on Sunday, the congregation were coming into church. And I don't think those brown, if you remember the old brown cushions in the sanctuary, I don't think they were ever put back in the right place. So I don't know what role you played in that, Ian, but I suspect you, Davy Cochrane, your brother, were probably all in amongst that. And I suspect James Payton got his knuckles wrapped as well as the YP leader. Of course, when we became involved in leadership in the YP, we didn't do anything like that. And I think it's worth stepping back. And for those of you that are perhaps new to the church, when we were in YP, it was just a very different time in the sense that there was no technology. If you were lucky, you might have watched a video, the Left Behind series or A Thief in the Night, and David Cochrane can tell you great stories about that. But it was also, Sunday was also very church focused, right? We started with Sunday school. You then went to church, you spent the afternoon with the family, or in my case, somebody's family, and then you came back to church at 6 o'clock or 6:30, you had a cup of tea, and then you went to youth group. That's a really long, long day. And it's amazing, right, that people still actually then went to youth group in spite of being probably pretty tired on a Sunday. And I think they came because there was a sense of community and a sense of just spending time with people. And we did a lot of safari suppers, and we go to McDonald's, excitingly. And I do remember as being very creative. We did the Axel Ludicrous, but I wasn't in that, but you were in that, Ian. And we did Esther. Do you remember that? We're all dressed in curtains, singing the story of Esther. Ian, you were Mordecai, and I think Rhonda and I were the kids, along with Alan Cullen, being told the story by Stuart Middleton. I mean, these are names that you'll remember. I think what's really funny is we studied so much for that. I mean, that took up your Sunday afternoons, but it really paid off, and I think the congregation appreciated it. We then took it to the next level, and we sang Sister Act and Joyful, Joyful and Oh Happy Days. And I think I'm right in saying Debbie Kenny cartwheeled down the middle aisle. I could be wrong. I know we did that in practice, but my memory's not as good as it once was. So lots of fun stuff, right? A lot of creativity. There was a time when you also rented a bus from Brian Suter. Do you remember that? Carolyn wasn't there. I don't know if she was old enough, or Mary and Colin decided it was too crazy a time. I'll come back to Carolyn in a minute. But we were on that bus driving around parts of Scotland, singing Father Abraham, His Many Sons. And I also remember Derek Hislop, we told him, because he was sleeping downstairs, that the bus driver was an axe murderer. I mean, honestly, these silly, silly things that we did back then that seemed really quite funny. And then I think when I look at the YP as well, there was opportunities for growth and leadership. Youth Sunday was always pretty nerve-wracking. I mean, you always preached, you were the YP leader, the president, but you also gave opportunities for folks like myself and Robert Gray and Brian McLaughlin and Debbie and Rhonda and others to preach on a Sunday. And I often look back at that time and say that a lot of us who've ended up in leadership roles, either in the church or outside the church, a lot of the grounding that we got and the exposure happened back then. So I have a lot of fond memories of my time with you in Parkhead. And of course, as you rightfully acknowledged, when I left to come to America in 2000, you wrote a poem. Do you remember that? I still actually have it here. You spoke about the fact that when we were in YP, you know, that sometimes words were a bit firm. Generally, my words were firmer than yours. And I think that was always true. It's still the case, actually. I'm still the person that has to lean into the hard conversations. You were always the good cop. It wasn't fair. I always had to be the bad person. But of course, we have continued a friendship over the last 30 years, good times and hard times. We share our 21st birthdays together, but I think it's really phenomenal. When I look at the transformation that Parkhead has gone through, you've played clearly a key part in that, but you don't do it alone, Ian. You're able to do it because you've got a partner there in the form of Carolyn, who had her own gifts to bring, her own support, and that takes quite a lot, right, to be so present to others in ministry. And then you surrounded yourself with a leadership team as well. So while I think for a lot of people, you know, the transition now to Perth might seem really hard, I think you've done amazing work at Parkhead, building on the foundation, you know, through Colin, through Dr. Martin over the years. So I wish you well with the next move. I don't know when I'll get back home because of the pandemic, but make sure you get a spare room because I'll definitely be coming up to Perth.
Hi Ian, Carolyn, Lucy and Sarah. Hi from the beautiful British Columbia here on Canada's west coast. And I wanted just to take a couple of minutes today just to wish you well as you embark on this new season of life and ministry, as you head from Parkhead to Perth. And I'm sure it's a time filled with so many mixed emotions and feelings right now as you lean into what's coming up and anticipate and get excited around that, and also sadness, I'm sure, as you're leaving a community that you have spent and invested all, if not the vast majority of your lives in. As I was thinking and reflecting back, I've been was around Parkhead probably from the age of about 4 or 5, and thinking of the events and the things that happened that were a big part of my life then and continue to shape who I am today. You know, I still regard Parkhead as my home church. Strange, since I haven't been there in over 20 some years. But I think of the consistency of the programs, the relationships of the people. You know, each Sunday night heading upstairs in the old building to the YP room. I think of events like safari suppers where we go around people's homes and have different meals in different places and connect with families there. Things like First Footing, where, you know, the young people would take the service on Hogmanay, and then we would go around different people's houses eating and just being together. And as I was thinking about it, I don't actually recall too much of the specifics of the programs, but what I do hold dear is the relationships and the friendships that still exist because of those times, where people would open up their homes and open up their lives, and in many ways it felt like an extended family. And I want to thank you for your part in that and your contribution in that. It's been a huge part of my life. Events and district events, when we worked together on like Curious, bringing young people together for worship and service together. I think of trips like Moldova, which I still recall and still connect with some of the kids that were at that camp that we went to. And I think about all the travel hassles that happened between Bucharest and Chisinau on that train that some of us never actually got on to. I think of taking youth services and the planning and the preparation. I think of the first sermon I ever preached was at one of those. I think it should have lasted 20 minutes and it lasted 7 because I spoke so fast, got nervous, and how forgiving people were in that moment. I think for me, the most vivid memory I have, and I still feel to this day, is the day when I gave my heart to Christ, when I responded to him. And it was a communion service, and I went forward at Parkhead in that old building and knelt at the altar, and I remember 2 hands, and I still feel those 2 hands on my shoulder. To the right was my mum, to the left, Ian, was yours. And at times I still feel like your hands are on those shoulders. I want to thank you for your investment in the lives of so many people, into my life, and I simply want to take this time to say, I really wish you well. I wish you success in your ministry. I wish and pray good things for you as a family, and that this season in life will be your best season, your best yet. And just to know that we're praying and thinking of you and praying for God's blessing to be on you.
As so many have testified, you managed to shake off some of your mischief-making tendencies. And so when it became clear that you felt a call to ministry, many were excited to support you and knew God would use you in a very special way. The previous lead pastor of Sharp Memorial Church is probably best placed to comment on the skills you brought to the church. And you probably won't be too surprised to note that he does so in 3 points.
Ian George Wills was a 9-year-old lad when we first came to Glasgow in 1980. We didn't realise then what he would become. A graduate of Glasgow University with 2 degrees, a youth president and associate pastor, a doctor of ministry, the church's senior pastor, an effective leader, and my son-in-law. It has been a privilege for me to have shared in ministry with Ian, first working with him from 1997 when he became associate pastor, and then enjoying being under his ministry from 2009 when he became pastor. He was ordained in 2001. Looking back, I'm grateful to Ian for bringing to the ministry of the church ministry gifts that I lacked and gifts that were much needed, and in 3 areas. First, evangelism. The church has from its very beginnings been a centre of outreach and evangelism, but it became clear that a new focus and vision for evangelism was needed. Ian, working closely with Edith Fotheringham, brought the Alpha programme to the church, and with great effect. Second, although many were comfortable in the church with traditional forms of worship, others, and younger members among them, saw the need to embrace more modern and contemporary forms of worship. Over a number of years we shared together in a ministry of transition where new forms of worship were introduced, and Ian was a vital part of this. Third, after discussing options for the church, relocating, refurbishing, rebuilding, and over a considerable number of years, when Ian became lead pastor, he brought a new energy to the discussions and was able to gather a team around him, which resulted in the plans to demolish and rebuild the church, these facilities that we have been enjoying for the past 7 years. Thankfully, and largely as a result of the generosity of Margaret McLaren, we had already established a building fund. From 1997 to the present time, a period of some 23 years, Ian has served diligently, with integrity, giving faithful and consistent leadership, and has been an example to us all in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity. Words from 1 Timothy 4:12. We say thank you, and we know God will bless and use him in the days to come. We will miss the family, Carolyn, Lucy, Sarah. God bless you all.
The adulation between you and your previous boss does go both ways. You confirmed this in a video you recorded in 2005 when we were celebrating the anniversary of Mr. and Mrs. Wood, or Colin and Mary, as you seem to call them in this clip. I'm sure they'll appreciate hearing the comments again, if only they could understand your accent.
This is my 9th year working in the church here in Parkhead and working alongside Colin and Mary in ministry. And over those years I've learned an awful lot in terms of how my own ministry has been shaped by watching Colin and Mary in their ministry. And there's a number of things that come immediately to mind when I think of what I've learned. Things like commitment and faithfulness immediately strike me when I think about Colin and Mary. The fact that in ministry we're in this for the long term. People need commitment for the long term, and when you start something you have to see it right through, irrespective of how long that takes you. So I think faithfulness and commitment are two key lessons that I've learned in ministry from him. I suppose the other thing from Colin is that he's such a diplomat and always manages to find a peaceful solution, never likes to rock the boat. And I suppose for my ministry, where sometimes I propose all kinds of bizarre things, Colin has taught me how to try and steer a middle road or pathway through some difficult situations. And also I think Colin is just trustworthy. He's a man of integrity. I think that's why people respond to him and respect him so much. I think that's why people like him so much, is that he's just a man of integrity. And I think that's critical in ministry. Of course, the best thing that Colin and Mary have brought to me into the church is, of course, their daughter. And that's probably what struck me most when they first arrived 25 years ago as a young 9-year-old I was at the time, was that they brought with them two young blonde-haired girls. And I suppose I need to thank them for that as well.
Hello, Ian. I'm rather annoyed at you for considering, firstly, and later confirming, you're leaving Parkhead to serve in our Perth church. I remember distinctly telling you, no, have you forgotten I am she who must be obeyed? We have worked together on the board, you as chairman and I as secretary, for 10 years, although longer than this when you were the associate pastor with the Reverend Colin Wood. I have appreciated your support and help, and especially when a certain person in the church did not want me to be appointed as church secretary. I believe you had a discussion with him. When our new church was being built and we were worshipping in John Wheatley College, your determination to carry on being a pastor in a perhaps reduced role as you were suffering from cancer was admirable. God had work for you to do, and when the miracle of an operation took place, after recovery, you were back in full swing. No holding a good man back. Your participation in the church football team was appreciated, I am sure, although it was probably better to keep hidden any suggestion that you were a minister of religion. I pray health and strength over you and your family, and may God bless your ministry in Perth.
You were called by the church as lead pastor in 2009 and have carried out that role for the last 11 years. You have always been keen to build a team around you and invested in various team members across the years. I asked David if he could convey the emotion of working with you in a picture, and he submitted this one. We will come back to Dave in a few moments, but first of all, one of your first associates was Michelle Sowerby, now Michelle Lynham.
Hello, my name is Michelle Lynham, and I had the privilege of serving alongside Ian from 2004 to 2012. Initially as a placement student, then in 2005 as a summer intern, and from 2006 to 2012, I relocated from Manchester to Glasgow to serve as part of the ministry team in Parkhead. It's my privilege now just to share a couple of ways in which Ian impacted me during that time. I arrived as a placement student. I was 19. I was a shy Yorkshire girl being sent up to the east end of Glasgow. I was exploring my call to ministry. And Ian was patient. He was encouraging. He helped shape me in my early stages of ministry. In fact, most of my 20s were actually spent at Parkhead. I found Ian to be very empowering. I was young, I was inexperienced, but Ian created an environment where it was okay to try, and it was okay to fail. Ian was a huge encouragement in creating space for me to be creative, and always asking questions to get me to think deeper, to reflect more, and always valued what I had to say when I thought God was speaking to me. One of the biggest ways Ian impacted me was that he believed in me. I remember a conversation once when I was on placement and we were working through some of the paperwork that we had to do. And one of the questions was, how would you explain to someone if they asked the question, how did they become a Christian? And as I said, I was shy, I was nervous, I had very little self-confidence. And even though I had scriptures in my head, I just couldn't say it out loud. And Ian sat there and he gently kind of coaxed me to say what I was thinking, and he just said that he believed in me. He knew that I knew the answer. I just had to have more confidence and just say it out loud. So right from that early point in my placement, I always felt that Ian was always advocating for me. He was always for me. He always believed in me, and that just meant such a lot throughout those years that I was in Parkhead. I always felt that Ian was very releasing in ministry. He always trusted me to do things. So when it came to planning things like the ministry fair or doing Easter on the street, there was always a trust and always a releasing to go and do and to get on with things. Another way that Ian impacted me during my time in Parkhead was that it's obvious that Ian loves God. It's obvious that he loves his family and that he loves the church. And at the time, I don't know if it's still true, it was very obvious that he loved Rangers Football Club. And so as part of my cultural orientation, I was taken to a game and Ian bought me a scarf, and it was just great fun just to be in the stand, hearing all the singing and just being impacted in that way. And one other thing would be that Ian not only impacted me, but he impacted my family whenever they came to visit or whenever their paths have crossed, whether it was at my graduation or at different events. They would always be left with such a good impression of Ian, and by extension the church. And it really means such a lot to me that whenever Ian welcomed me, he welcomed them, and they just often ask about how things are going in Parkhead and kind of journeyed with you with the new building. And it's just really wonderful that they feel connected too. So I thank you for impacting my family, Ian, actually, and the wider connection there. And I'm just so thankful for the time that I got to spend in Parkhead. As I said, most of my 20s were spent there, and it really did lay the foundation for my future life, for my future ministry. And I just thank God for the opportunity to work alongside Ian, to be shaped by Ian. And Ian, I just want to thank you so much for investing in me as that young 19-year-old girl, and just for helping lay that foundation for the life that God has called me to.
Back in 2008, I started on staff, Ian, just after you returned from your significant time in America. I remember the change that you had experienced, the encounters with God that you spoke so profoundly about. And I remember being really impressed by the fact that he was a man ordained already with years worth of experience in ministry. And yet there you were, open to God and his ongoing change in your life. Not just even open to it, you were hungry for God to continue to change you. And that for me stands out from my early experiences and has impacted me ever since. You stewarded change well in your own life, but you also stewarded change well in the church. It's not easy to get a church to change. There's the joke that does the rounds, how many Nazarenes does it take to change a light bulb? Change? Why do we want change? But you beautifully stewarded the change in the church to the point that so many of us were brought along with you on that journey, to the point where we see this church full of life and vibrancy because you have followed that clear calling from God and the way that he was doing new things in you and through you. Also see the way you've got great vision. You see things and perceive things when not many other people do. You see them at a church-wide level. I mean, you also see them at an individual level as well. And whether it's church or individual, you don't just see them, but you speak them out and you make a difference. You get people drawn along with you in that process of seeing things and making them happen, whether it's at church or within us as individuals. I see you as a man of wonderful, humble service. I remember litter picking with you and on the streets of Parkhead after football matches. I remember hearing you give testimony in men's retreats, humblingly so, of the battles and realities that you'd faced growing up. Stewarding a testimony that really impacts me and impacts many of us other guys, even to this day. Thank you for your honesty and willingness to be so raw and real with us. I remember times at the Be Rolled on retreat with you and John and Shelley, times of prophecy, times of powerful worship, and times of celebrating together, times of 24 hours of silence, proof that miracles can happen. Ian Wills, 24 hours, not a word spoken. I was there, folks. But I remember those times with great thankfulness and joy. Also, so many more things to share, but I remember significantly sitting in the front room at your house with John and Shelley when you shared with us about your diagnosis of cancer. I remember so many emotions, just utterly shell-shocked, lost for words. But I think the thing that above all stands out for me was this man of God, broken and uncertain about the future, and yet there you are praising God, saying we're going to worship our way through this, you and Kaz and the girls. And it is a mighty testimony to your faith and to your courage. And I rejoice at the fact that God has honoured that. And we honour you for that example that you give us. Ian, you're a man also of excellence, sometimes sickening levels of excellence as well, actually. But the beauty of that is that I haven't ever come across one hint of arrogance with that excellence. You do everything so well with such heart for God and such heart for kingdom. And that's seen also across sort of Glasgow church networks and across UK church networks and even internationally. So many church leaders speak so highly of you. It gives you such an example, gives us such an example of how highly you are regarded. Hosea 6:8 is a verse that I read and I think of you, my friend. You're a man who acts justly. You're a man who walks humbly and who loves and lives with such mercy. You're a true example, you're a true friend to so many of us. And I personally look forward to many decades, God willing, of serving alongside you, friend. Blessings.
So we couldn't talk about Ian's years in ministry without talking about the new building. It was a long journey and so many occasions where we could see God moving and directing us. We're going to take a few minutes to remind ourselves of that journey from old to new with some pictures. But first, Chris will remind us of some of the steps we had to climb.
Hi there. It's very easy to take a building for granted. After all, buildings are just sort of there, aren't they? But at Burgess Street, we have a fantastic building in which to do church, even if we can't be there at the moment. But buildings which work as well as this require a good design team. And if the architect is going to be able to produce something really good, then it needs a really good brief from the client. Now that means they really need to understand what they want from that building. Our new church took a long time in the planning, and Pastor Ian was core to that whole process. You have to remember that Ian was busy running a busy church, that took all his working hours and a whole lot more. And when the building project came along, it wasn't as if all the other stuff was set aside. All that input was added to Ian's workload. But as has happened so often with Ian through his ministry with us, he threw himself into it 100%. He sought vision from God to understand how the ministry of the church would develop within a new building. That took perseverance. I think it was about 12 years from when the board first decided to knock down and rebuild until demolition started. And Ian was there every step of the way, leading, pushing, encouraging, envisioning, searching out answers from God and searching out funding from anywhere and everywhere. Yes, there was a strong team around him, but Ian undoubtedly led that team. Bear in mind too that whilst we were worshipping temporarily up in John Wheatley College, Ian was diagnosed with cancer and all the trauma that entailed, as he spoke about last Sunday. And so, when the building opened, was it worth it all? Was it ever? And Ian did not seek glory for this. For him, the new building was always a stepping stone to the real goal, winning souls for Jesus. Whenever someone with a family gives this much, we have to recognise that their family gives too. And so this tribute would fall short if it didn't include thanks to Carolyn, Lucy and Sarah for their part, perhaps played fairly quietly in the background, but a crucial part nonetheless. And when the building was opened, did Ian stop and take what would have been a well-deserved break? No. Ian started to put that ministry plan into action, along with all the planning for the 2014 Parkhead Games. But that is another story. Thank you.
All I have and all I am is yours.
church has had a visible presence in Parkhead for some 114 years, but your vision, Ian, was not that we would just be visible, but that we would be a part of the community, working with other groups, being peacemakers and sharing God's love. As chance would have it, we managed to find a few people who could testify to that too.
Hi Ian, I'd just like to take this opportunity to wish you all the very best in your new adventure. I can't quite believe that you're leaving, and I'm sure you're probably feeling the same, and I'm sure it's with a very heavy heart also. But to know that your legacy will live on in the New Charter and in the Nazarene, and your team that has been beside you for many years, and Shelley and John will continue to spread that lovely joy and peace across our community. Over the years, Ian, we've heard many stories from children and families about what the Nazarene and the New Charter now means to them. And in a time where it's been very, very difficult, having your services reach out to the families and the community has been very, very important. And I'm sure no matter where you go, you'll continue to do that. Over the years, you have been to some of your services which have been happy or sad, and no matter when I come in, there's just a sense of love and peace in the Nazarene, and you always seem to just know what to say at the right time. You're just such a genuine, caring, compassionate person, and you'll be a big loss to our community. If you're ever passing Parkhead Nursery, you know the kettle will always be on. We'd be delighted to hear how you're getting on and what you've been up to.
Morning, it's Graham at Parkhead Housing Association here, just to say goodbye to Ian, wish him all the best. You've been a good friend to the association and our tenants over the years. Some of the work that the Church of the Naz have done under his tutelage has been quite incredible, and we've been very, very lucky in a huge number of respects to have him as one of our partner workers. So all the best, Ian, take care, and just a shame you weren't very good at football, son.
Hi Ian. My relationship with the Burger Street Church of Nazarene goes back quite some time, to my teenage years, when I used to go to the Boys Brigade there, and I had many, many good times there as well. And later on in life, when I went to college and university, I met a mutual friend, Frank Connolly, and I think my connection and his connection with the Nazarene Church brought us closer together in many respects. And we used to talk quite a lot about different things, you know, with the Church of Nazarene and yourself being the topic of discussion at times. And then one day Frank said to me that he'd organised a game of golf. I think it was at Rook and Glen, and he asked me if I wanted to go along, and he told me that you were coming, and I said, yeah, that'd be great. And then he quickly said, well, listen, you need to watch your language because Ian's a minister. And right away my initial thoughts were, okay, that gives me about 120 to 150 opportunities to practice positive language. And I think on the day, I think I managed to succeed really well, but I think I also swore a few times, but you know, you were quite cool about it and stuff like that, and that was the thing that kind of struck me afterwards, but when we met a few times, that you were always just quite a cool guy, you know, apart from, you know, the fact that you could see the strength of Jesus coming through you, and that was more evident when I spoke to you a couple of times about my beliefs and yours. And you told me a story one day about how your mother made, you know, allowed you to follow your beliefs and you know, and don't be shy about, you know, broadcasting it, so to speak. And I told you a story about what happened to me in Australia, and it kind of resonated. And not that I needed anything at the time, you know, in terms of reinforcement, but you know, that conversation we had, I think that was Jesus talking through you again, saying, look, you know, Ian's doing the right thing, so you're on the right road, so don't worry about it, you know. So that's from a separate point of view. But from myself, personally, I'd like to thank you for your friendship. And being a Parkhead boy, born and bred, I'd like to thank you very, very much and very sincerely for everything that you've ever done in Parkhead, because Parkhead would certainly be a poorer place if it hadn't been for the work that the Church of Nazarene's done.
Hi Ian. On behalf of everyone in Parkhead Youth Project, I'd just like to thank you for all your support over the years. You've been a great ambassador for Parkhead and Parkhead Youth Project, and a good support to me, especially when I took on the job as manager. I'd like to wish you and your family all the very best for the future. You'll be sadly missed here in Parkhead, but I'm excited for people that have yet to meet you and what you could bring to those communities.
Hi Ian, just a quick word from Giza Break, just to wish you and your family all the best for the future up in Perth. Just wanted to say from the whole organisation, thank you for your generosity over the years, thank you for your support. Thinking of things like the Christmas parties that we've hosted together, I know you've been in the centre of them having fun, making sure everybody else is having fun. I've got fond memories of the Redeeming Our Communities, the Rock project, and all the good work that came out of that, and you being first up on stage at the Royal Concert Hall for the big opening event. And just for all your support, we really appreciate it, and thank you for everything from Giza Break.
When I first heard the news, Ian, that you were leaving, my first reaction, I have to say, was shock. I was convinced you left about 3 or 4 years ago. My real reaction was, first of all, there was a sadness, because whenever someone that you've worked alongside and witnessed with for, well, must be well over between 25 and 30 years, probably one way or another, as assistant minister and then as full-time pastor at Parkhead Nazarene, there was a sense in which it was as if an era was coming to an end. There was also a sense of regret. We didn't have as many coffees with each other as we were going to have, and it's maybe a lesson for us, each one of us, to learn that when the opportunity arises, take that opportunity. I really appreciated the times when we did sit down and chat. I appreciated your ear. Appreciated your wisdom. Oh, no, there'll be enough false things said about you just now. I appreciated your ear. I appreciated your friendship and your understanding. Whatever the future holds for you, I'm sure God will continue to bless you. And I think that's definitely true, because one of the things that struck me most about your time in Parkhead is the heart that you had for the kingdom of God in Parkhead. The number of times we've prayed together and prayed with the other leaders in the churches and prayed for God's kingdom to come in Parkhead, for it to be revealed. And you have been a huge part of the church being noticed in Parkhead, being seen as something more than just a religious organisation that has got different buildings all over the place. For that, on behalf of Parkhead, the community, the people and the churches together, I want to say thank you, Ian. And I'm sure, as I said, I'm sure whatever God's got planned for you in Perth or wherever you happen to be, God will bless you and he'll make you a blessing to those around you. So be assured, as you've been in my prayers ever since we've met together, be assured that you'll continue to be in my prayers. And may God richly bless you in whatever lies ahead. Thanks, Ian.
It's so lovely to hear the stories of impact which have spilled from our church and from your leadership. Now, Ian, you may think that time is getting on a bit, and time is getting on a bit, and I guess now you know what it's like to be sitting in your congregation on a Sunday morning. Well, suffice to say, I am coming to a close, and we just have 12 more topics that we need to cover. We have heard time and time again tonight from people who have been impacted by your ministry, by your passion, your leadership, and your example. We're going to hear from a couple more.
Hi Ian and Carolyn. This is just a short message to say thank you for everything that you've invested in me over the years, for all the love, the kindness and the support that you've shown me, especially when I was 17, when I was just a broken soul, and you just took me into your home, you loved me, you encouraged me, and I've been able to invest that into other people in my life. You made such an impact in my life at that time that it really did change the course of things for me, and I'll forever be grateful.
So many blessings to you and the girls as you go on your next adventure. But we'll miss you lots. Love you. Bye.
My earliest memories of you, Ian, were chasing me about the marine singles game, kicking me because you couldn't catch me. So you were kicking my legs away from me. But, you know, after that initial meeting, I found myself at the church and doing an Alpha course. And, you know, you ran those courses brilliantly. Your personality was infectious, you were enthusiastic, you know, leading the worship, and then from that into the drop-in and the Mondays, and they were special days and special times, and you had a massive part to play in my early development as a Christian and the discipleship that you gave me that helped me to grow and to learn about the Bible and pursue God in a real meaningful way. So yeah, thank you for all your input. Carolyn, the girls as well, you're just like part of the family. You've had a massive part to play in my life as well. So wish you all the best for the future and see you soon. Take care.
Ian, Kaz, Lucy, Sarah, we love you and we're so excited for you. Michael asked me a couple of days ago what I thought I was going to say in this video. And the truth is, the best I can say is that my life wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for you. You've made such an impact in my life from the day that I first met you. The overwhelming acceptance and love, the continuous love, it's just been so evident throughout the years. And I know it's not always been easy because I was never always the easiest person, but you never gave up on me and I've never forgotten that. The things that I've learned from you, the things that I've watched you be like as individuals and as a pastor's wife and a pastor and as a mentor and as a friend and as family has just impacted me so much and really helped me grow as an individual and grow as a wife and grow as someone in the church. And you've just shown me so much, and I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that our friendship remains today, that it's blossomed, that our love for each other continues, and our love for you guys just continues so much. And we'll be praying with you and praying for you in these next steps, and we're so excited for you.
Yeah, and we're just so grateful for your continued investment in our life and the life of our family as well. I'm just really grateful for your continued example and your willingness to say yes to Jesus. That's what inspired us to continue to say yes to Jesus. And as Debbie says, if we hadn't met you, our life wouldn't be the same. We wouldn't be where we are today. But I'm so excited that you continue to be willing to say yes to Jesus, and that's what's leading you on this new adventure for your life, and we couldn't be any more happier for you. And your yes to Jesus has given an opportunity for the Parkhead Church to say yes to Jesus for a new chapter as well. And so we are equally excited for our friends and family up there. We love to come home and visit, as you know, and there's been a lot of changes in the last 10 years since we kind of left the church. So every time we come back, there's something new. It will be difficult to come up and not have you around there at the church, I'm sure. But we're glad that your friendship will remain, that your mentorship will remain. We're glad that we can still reach out at any point and contact you. And so we do love you, we are continuing to pray for you, and we're excited for you in these days.
Many of our contributors tonight have mentioned how your ministry, Ian, has been shaped and facilitated by your family. Carolyn has played such an important role in sharing ministry with you, and we know God has worked through you both throughout your time in Parkhead. This was particularly seen in the life groups in which you both had such an impact.
Hi Ian and Carolyn, Lucy and Sarah. This is a day of great rejoicing and thanksgiving for your long ministry in Parkhead Church. A day also mixed with sadness. Tom and I attended your life group at your home and have been asked to reflect on those Thursday night experiences. Thursday night was Tom and I's big night out of the week. We loved it and it was great fun. Life group was amazing, but so normal. Folks, different ages, varied backgrounds, and at different stages on their faith and prayer walk. Ian and Carolyn, We thank you for the quick turnaround in your home on Thursday nights to host us at 7 o'clock, an achievement for any young family. Your home was always cosy, warm and welcoming, as we shared great food and chat and fun around your kitchen table. Ian mostly led the study. The spirit just seemed to take over the atmosphere, and we were all given the space, freedom and openness to reflect and ask questions. Prayer was so normal, like a stream flowing out of all the conversations and concerns and difficulties Father God had previously listened to during our evening. His presence and his spirit was all over your home. The prophetic word, often released in the group, was received and taken away for prayer. There was always an openness to honour the prophetic. Finally, Ian and Carolyn, a big thank you for being our lead pastor, but also our friends. Bless you both as we continue to encourage and pray over you. I would like to leave you with 2 passages of scriptures to hold on to in your new journey. Psalm 131 and Philippians chapter 1 verses 3 and 4. We all love you so much.
Hi guys, Kaz and Ian, the Wills family. I remember I came to the church 20 years ago and I wasn't a Christian then. I was going to a fellowship actually, and I was watching Ian bringing the word for the pulpit, and he came over and spoke to me after the service and asked me to come in an Alpha course. And I remember looking at him and he had a wee earring in, and I thought, oh, he's quite a cool pastor. He had a wee silver, I can't remember if it was a wee silver cross or a wee silver loop, but I'm sure you'll remember him. And then after that I went in an Alpha course, and during the Alpha course I gave my life to Christ. And then every week after that, Ian, I used to work with you in the drop-in, and it was great times, great memories. Used to bring the word every week. I couldn't wait to go home and read the Bible. And then a few years ago, Kaz, I remember I was in a very good place, and you invited me over to your house, and me and you used to do a wee Bible study. You're such a positive influence in my life, Kaz, for a young woman. You're so selfless, you're always giving out to others, you're always listening to others. The amount of times, Kaz, you've helped out with my family. I remember when Jim's dad died as well, you just came up out the blue and took Pam and Louise out for something to eat. I just thought that was so thoughtful and so caring. You're such a spiritual young woman, Kaz. And I remember another time when we were away at Northbreak the holiday, and obviously Louise and Stephanie were doing the dancing, and you all took part in a big hip hop dance. I thought it was absolutely amazing. So many memories. It's hard to say what they all are. There's just so many. And here we are, a turnaround of 20 years later, guys, and now we've got my group in my house, which Kaz came up with, and it's called Rita's Rascals. Thank you for that, Kaz. And you're such a great teacher, Kaz, as well. You're so good at asking all the questions, listening to others in the group. And we have it's all ladies that are in my group, but we have so many good times. Just want to say thank you so much, Kaz and Ian, for the massive influence that you have had in my life. And through that, all my family has came to Christ. I could nearly cry just now, but I just want to say I'm going to miss you so much, and I know God has a plan for you up in Perth, and I wish you all the best. Love yous.
And then to Lucy and Sarah. Actually, wait a minute. Did Rita say that you were involved in doing some hip-hop dancing? Surely we must be able to find some footage of that somewhere.
It was all a dream.
Bet you thought you were getting away with that one. And now to Lucy and Sarah. I've got a pretty good knowledge of what it's like to be a pastor's kid. It certainly has its challenges, and we want to thank Lucy and Sarah supporting you, Ian and Kaz, in your ministry. Both Lucy and Sarah have had such important roles in the church, and they are going to be sorely missed.
What can I say? It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know both Lucy and Sarah over the last 6 years. We've had so much fun and laughter together as a YP and just spending time with each of them. It's been an incredible time, and we're really going to miss them from our youth activities and certainly from my life. They bring so much fun and and laughs to everything that they do. I'm going to miss the way that they see beauty in the world around them. I always remember when Sarah was on a Sunday school camp and went to my mum and dad's house and just thought that their washing line was the prettiest thing ever. And I just love being able to see the beauty of the world through their eyes in the way that they see it. I've just loved having them at youth activities. Both Lucy and Sarah have a real way of seeing people who are maybe on the edge or the outside of the group and pulling them into the group and making them feel welcome. Lucy in a slightly more quiet way, but Sarah in a very bubbly, infectious banter way. And the two of them have just such a real way about them with people, and so we're going to really miss that in all of our youth activities. So thank you to you both for the way that you've really served other young people and that you've really looked out for other people within the group. I'm going to miss all the laughs and the jokes that we've had. Bible studies are usually spent with Lucy and Sarah in stitches at times. Sometimes I don't even know if they know what they're laughing at. And so it's been nice to just have a laugh at things with them, and I'm going to miss that too. And there's been so many memories that we've made over different youth activities, whether it's been getting lost on the way to Glenkin or getting lost on the way to rollerblading, roller skating even, or whether it's making s'mores, photo challenges, all over the place. We love a photo challenge in the YP. Weekends away, baking, sleepovers, safari lunches. There's just been so many good memories, and we're going to really miss you guys as you move on to Perth.
Lucy, thank you so much for all your help with Kids Club over the last few years. We appreciate you so much for looking after the kids that are struggling and doing our registration. We don't know how we're going to do it without you. We'll miss you. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Hi Sarah. I just want to say you are such a very special person to us, and you are definitely one of a kind. It has been an honour and a privilege having you part of our family, and most of all part of our dance family, and we are truly blessed and privileged to be part of your journey, aren't we?
Yeah. Sarah, when I think about you years ago as a little girl running about in the church, and then looking at you today, the beautiful young lady that you're turning into, it's so amazing. And I just love how confident you are, how sure you are of yourself and who you are in Christ. It's so amazing to watch. When you are teaching the Dancing Stars, it's just wonderful. I can't believe how, you're just great.
She's amazing. You're literally taking over.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to be there half the time.
That's the teacher within her.
Yeah, you've just blossomed right into the teacher role. Just seeing you getting more and more confident every week. mainly we get back, we get our tea and our coffee on, and you take the reins, and we love it, and we hope future, we're not saying this is forever, like you will always still be part of our school in some sort of way.
And thank you for inspiring us, Sarah. You inspire us to be better teachers and to be better role models for girls your age.
Yeah, and we love you dearly, and we can't imagine the place not being without you, so we'll always still have that connection there. You've become like a little sister to us, and it's been great getting to mentor you and just see you take on that role and flourish right into it, and we love you so much.
And we know that God has an amazing plan for your life, absolutely amazing. This is only the beginning.
As we come to the end of this programme, all the speakers this evening have spoken about the impact that you have had on their life and the amazing impact that you have had for the gospel, not just in Parkhead, but in many other places, wherever you have invested time, energy and love. So now to the future. We know that you have been called to start a new chapter of your ministry in Perth Trinity Church of the Nazarene. There will be some challenges ahead, including completing a building programme during a global pandemic. In fact, we have actually found some footage of when Jim, the previous pastor in Perth, realised that it would be you that would take on this mammoth task. This opens a new chapter in the work in Parkhead 2, which will continue with God's help and through the ongoing dedicated service of those who you have empowered and equipped.
Wells family, we are so sad to see you go, but so thankful as we remember all that you have invested over the years. Carolyn, you probably won't remember this, but you were the one who suggested to me that I might want to go and study theology. I think I was probably about 17 at the time, but that started me on a journey I could never have imagined and has led me to where I am today, knowing God's call on my life.
And Ian, I still remember meeting you all those years ago. I think it was 8 years ago when we first met in a cafe and had a wee chat about what it would look like for me to come on the staff team at the church. And I look back and I really appreciate that invitation and have just been so blessed to be able to be a part of what God has been doing in Parkhead over the past number of years. And I am so thankful for the ways that you have mentored me and released me into leadership. It's never felt like a boss-employee type relationship. And as I look forward now to the future, in many ways as a leader, I'm going to seek to put into practice what I recently preached, to follow your example as you seek to follow the example of Jesus Christ.
And Ian, I've also been really blessed to work alongside you these last years. I am really thankful for all that you've invested in me, the way you've taught me, challenged me, encouraged me and inspired me. The way you've led this church has very much shaped me into the kind of leader I am today. So thank you.
Well, I think Shelley and I would both say that we have just felt really privileged to be part of the team here. And above all, Ian, we're so thankful that you have been the kind of leader who has kept Jesus at the centre of all that we do. And because of that type of leadership, we are just really excited about what God will do next, both here in Parkhead, but also in your next step of the journey in Perth. So, Ian, thank you so much, and may God bless you and the family so richly in all that lies ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon His face shine upon you, be gracious